All right, thank you, Vice Chair. Several action items from Finance. First two relate to allowing our regional education service associations to charge indirect costs. So the first one is R277-424, and the committee moves that the board continues and approves R277-424, indirect costs for state programs, draft one on second and final reading.
There's a motion on the floor that the board continues and approves R277-424 indirect costs for state programs, draft one on second and final reading. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
All right, action item 12.3 also relates to charging of indirect costs by our RESAs, and it specifies the formula that will be used. So the motion is that the board continues and approves R277-706, Regional Education Service Agencies, draft one on second and final reading.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor that the board continues and approves R277-706, Regional Education Services, draft one on second and final reading. Seeing no discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, action item number 12.5, board policy updates related to board bylaw changes. So quick introduction here. We have a number that were reviewed in committee, a total of, I won't count them, about 10 or 11. It was explained by staff that, like other policies, these were revisions to conform with changes made to our bylaws earlier in the year. So there were a couple of questions raised. Ultimately, no motions were brought because it was understood that changes to these would most likely need to be brought as changes to bylaws. So with that introduction, these were all passed out in bulk for review by the board. The motion is that the board approves amendments to board policies 2001, 2002, 2003, 3001, 4001, 4002, 5001, 5006, 5007, and 5008.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor that the board approves amendments to board policies 2001, 2002, 2003, 3001, 4001, 4002, 5001, 5006, 5007, and 5008. Board Member Earl.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. One of the questions, well, I don't know if Brian Quisenberry can answer this, but it has to do with the item that was brought up during public comment today about our advisory committees and what the relationship was with open and public meeting laws, and are they considered, what's the term, a public body based on how they are represented and what they are. So I just asked if you would,
Yeah, I can.
comment on that.
If I may respond, Vice Chair.
Please.
I'm actually drafting an email to Jennifer Orton right now about this exact same thing. But here's what the definition of a public body is in Utah's Open Public Meeting Act. And it means administrative, advisory, executive body that, just skip down to subsection 4, is vested with the authority to make decisions regarding the public's business. So it has to have been vested with some kind of authority that it can then go and make some decisions. And it's not. It doesn't have that authority. It makes recommendations. It consults with the board, but it has no authority to order anyone or anybody to do anything. It can't tell staff to go and do something. It can't tell an LEA to go and do something. It can't tell a school or an administrator to do anything. So, in my opinion, it has no authority to make a decision that's binding on anyone. Instead, it makes recommendations. And because of that, I think it fails this definition of public body and is thus not subject to the Open and Public Meeting Act.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
Yes, and then my other question has to do with the term underrepresented. We've kind of stricken that, and I'm looking at the Access Committee one, 5001. Usually in law, I found 3 places in education law where it referred to underrepresented, and it is very specific to a specific item, and I can give you, let me give you 3 examples, if I can find my page here. No, I can't find my page here. So it would be like in relationship to something, relationship to a specific program. For example, let me look down, see if I can find my, goodness, you'd think I would write these in order of what page I'm on. Anyways, I can see if I can find them in just a minute, but they are in relationship to something. So underrepresentation maybe in a CTE program, or are underrepresented in a, anyways, whatever it is. Sorry, I'm trying to think. My point is when we put it in here as a broad narrative, it makes me wonder who underrepresented is. Do we have that defined somewhere? Because underrepresented could just simply be, there's a point where that could be overrepresented too, because they now have representation. So I don't know who the they are. I don't know who this is specifically, because we have a broad area. We've moved it outside of underachievement and at risk. That's what we used to have listed there. So I'm just wondering why we've changed it to the welfare of underrepresented students and what that looks like.
Chair Moss, can you answer?
I don't think, and frankly, I think I need to defer to staff on that one. So it looks like Jeff's willing.
Jeff Van Holten, Director of Public Affairs. Yes, there is a definition in Board Rule R277707. It is in relation to I believe the CTE AP. I think you recall that discussion. And the reason why at risk was taken out is because that program has been removed and it's just a WPU right now, and the language might be a little different. So we went with the underrepresented language, which is also in code and in Board Rule with the definition.
Okay, I guess we're moving outside of education is my question here. It should, to me, it should still be something with underachievement. It should be education related, where I feel like when we just say underrepresented, that becomes a broad narrative for a variety of different things. And we've listed that numerous times within here, so.
Thank you. Deputy Superintendent Stallings?
Sure. Angie Stallings, Deputy Superintendent of Policy. And Jeff just gave the citation correctly. It's in our R277707. The interesting thing about this definition, and I'm trying to remember, Board Member Earl, if you were here when we revised this rule, you may remember there was a study done by staff where they were looking at student enrollment in our more rigorous coursework, AP, IB, concurrent enrollment, et cetera. And we revised this rule significantly at that time. Our definition is quite broad, and I'll read it to you. Underrepresented students means a subset of students as determined by an LEA and approved by the superintendent, so our staff, that holds a smaller population in a program as compared to the overall LEA population. So it's really when the group that the students are in the school, there's a smaller group than the majority of students. So it would depend on the context of the school setting. And it also gives the leeway for the LEA to make that determination to say, this is our subset, these are our represented students. So it's in R277707, Section 2, Subsection 6.
Thank you. Board Member Lear?
My comment is completely different. I think if these are going to be official board policies, which they are, I just quickly looked at 3, and I thought I'd heard the promise that they would be made consistent in form. They're not. There's some with, one kind of outlining. That may seem unimportant, but I think they reflect on the professionalism of the board. So I think before I could vote yes to have these policies approved, they would have to be in a consistent format, and they're not.
Are you making an amendment to approve these in a consistent format?
Subject to them being
Subject to,
put into
well,
a
it can't be
consistent.
subject to, but it would say with direction to
With
make them
direction
in
to
a
put them in,
consistent
and
format.
by the next time we meet. So, and
Is that a friendly amendment, Board Member Moss?
I think so.
That's,
No, by the next time we
don't
meet as a
think you
board,
can answer for
as
the
a full
committee.
board,
you,
in a board meeting.
well,
There we
Board
go.
Member Moss is presenting this.
Would this be to defer action
you made
today
him.
until that's done?
No, it would
Okay.
just be to.
Simply a formatting.
December.
Make, like,
Correction.
if it says big I, little a, small 2, they all match the same instead of
Yeah.
1 numeral 1, big A, little 2. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Board Member Hanson?
Oh, just point of order, I'm not sure it's a committee motion that we can have a friendly amendment. So I think we might have to vote on the amendment, just, yeah. Unless we can just give direction to staff and it's not a substantive, I mean, it's not a
I'm-
change, that's probably okay.
I'm comfortable. I think, third time's probably the charm on this.
Director Van Holten?
Yes, and I'll have to apologize. The reformatting has been done. I just did not get it uploaded to Civic Clerk. It
Then
is
I-
actually completed.
Totally
Wow.
give you a pass.
Okay. So, Board Member, no, oh, wait, I'm sorry. You're waving your hand, but I've been making this mistake the whole day. I have to follow my screen. Oh, you actually are next after Board Member Hanson. Did you have another Board Member
I
Hanson?
did just have a comment back to the underrepresented.
Okay.
Where I believe that, given the definition, Angie read the definition that I remembered, I think that we just look at the demographics of the school, and then we look at the subset, whether that's, higher level math or computer coding or whatever, and say, do the demographics of the class look like the demographics of the school? If they don't, then we've got some underrepresented groups in that subset. So I feel like it's fairly straightforward, and it's a good way to deal with it. Personally, I think that's a good working definition.
Thank you. Board Member Cannon.
Okay, this is just a quick comment. When we have all of these in the new format, and I just went to my bookmark of all the board policies, and it's a 404 page now. So could I request that the new formatted policies be sent out to us with a web page where we can access all the board policies quickly?
Yes. Can we do that? Just, yes. Deputy Superintendent Stallings.
Yes. All of the board policies are posted on our website. So if you go to the USBE, the state board's webpage, and then in the search bar, just go board policies, there's a landing page where they're all listed. So these will all be updated. It'll probably be middle to end of next week before they're all updated, but maybe Jeff could send an email with the link to the landing page with them all on it.
Yeah, because I used to have it all bookmarked, and there's nothing there anymore.
Yes, please, Executive Assistant, Director, Organizer, Wonderful, Extraordinaire, Sybil, please.
Angie, we also just recently updated the webpage.
Can you speak in your mic for those who are online?
I recently updated the board's webpage as well, and we did put a hyperlink that will also link to the page that Angie just mentioned. And so we will make sure we get the formatted ones uploaded for you. And I'll send you the hyperlink.
Thank you. Board Member Hart?
I apologize, I should have asked about this earlier or looked it up myself. On 2E, a board member may not attend a meeting of a board advisory group unless otherwise specified by statute or board policy. Did that end up in our bylaws?
Correct.
Thank you. Do you have another one, Board Member Earl?
I'm trying, yeah, I'm looking at that. Sorry, it took me a minute to find the definition. Whatever I pulled up was not, it was an outdated version. So I just, once again, I guess if this is a broad group that's broadly, defining A, like we have here, then there should be articulation there. Or I guess I'm still looking at it being an achievement end of it, instead of just simply an underrepresented group in what. And I guess if we're using a definition, we should maybe make sure it has an academic element to it and not just represented in, all kinds of things. I just think leaving it broad like that leaves us to misinterpretation of what it is that they're doing. So
Thank you. Board Member Moss?
Just a comment to this point that, in college, and it may be the case now in high school, in some places, men are now underrepresented because women are doing great things. So I don't know, I think the amendment tries to go, I think, to the question of educational attainment rather than group distinctions, which may not actually be that relevant. Are we going to now make sure that there are men on this group because they're falling behind in their enrollment in AP classes? I think I support the amendment to that extent, that it looks at who needs help as opposed to just classifying and sorting.
Okay, so do we have an amendment on the floor? Or is just a
Oh,
motion?
we did. Sorry.
Do we have an amendment? No, we just have a motion.
All right, sorry.
Seeing no more Board Member Hanson.
Yep. To Board Member Moss's point, I'm wondering, why are we striking who are at risk for underachievement? Because that addresses exactly what he brought up. We're taking that out of this as we go forward. So that would be the academic element that they're talking about, and it looks like we're striking that. Does the committee
Are
have
you
a reason for
making
that?
an amendment?
I'm asking the question first, to see
Okay.
if they had a reason for
Board Member
that.
Moss? Or Vice Chair Moss?
Our understanding, and again, we didn't do a terribly deep dive, understanding was this was to conform with bylaw, and so perhaps I could ask staff, is that specific change also already in bylaw?
So it was updated based on some of the changes in different statute. I sincerely can say I don't think staff would die on this hill. I think if you want to include it or amend it back, I don't think anyone's going to be upset.
All right, thank you.
Are you making an amendment?
I will make that amendment.
Board Member Hanson?
Motion to amend to strike, I guess to reverse the strike or get rid of the strikeout of who are at risk for underachievement. So add
There's a motion.
the
Oh, do we
stricken
have a
language.
second?
No.
Second.
Second, Board Member Straight. We have a motion on the floor to add the words, who are at risk for underachievement in 2B of policy, what number is this one? 5001. Board Member Hanson, did you want to speak again?
No.
Board Member Straight?
Just real quick, is this time sensitive?
Is this time sensitive? Is the question, Chair, Vice Chair Moss?
I would again defer to staff. I think these were generated by staff to conform with either statute
Please
or
don't.
bylaws, but I defer to Director Van Houten.
So these changes were updates related to language that have happened in code, but mostly in bylaws. So you passed your bylaws in May. So you do have some policies that are kind of counter to what you have in the bylaws, and some of these are just more stylistic. So it depends on the policy, but it's up to you. You've already had some policies kind of out of compliance with your bylaws since May, so.
So, Board Member Straight, do you want to speak
I'll strike it.
towards the amendment?
I'm good with it. I seconded. Let's move on and
Okay,
let's get a vote.
Board
I
Member
call the
Earl.
question.
you call the question. We have a motion on the floor to call the question.
I'm
Do we need a
just,
second? Do you need a second? Do
can
we
you
have a
read?
second to call the question? Board Member Cannon, my understanding is that trumps all of the other motions. Is that correct? Parliamentarians? Okay.
Can you repeat the motion?
The motion is to call, first we have to vote on calling the question.
Okay.
Which means that then we're going to vote. There's a motion on the floor to call the question. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Board Member Earl and Board Member Klein are opposed. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor we have an amendment on the floor to include the words who are at risk for underachievement in 2B of policy 5001. I have a couple of lights. Are you speaking to this amendment? Board Member Earl first and then Board Member Klein? Are you speaking to the amendment to add the words?
We're adding the words, but not striking underrepresented.
Correct.
Right?
That's the
Okay,
amendment.
so there's a context that kind of gets thrown off. We're only dealing with at-risk kids who are already underrepresented. Is that what we're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that clarification.
Board Member Klein?
I just had a question for Jeff. What code is underrepresented in?
It passed in Senate Bill 151 of the 2019 session. It could be the 2020 session. The bill was Senator 19, yeah. They added underrepresented to several different programs, including the APA program, CTE, and whatnot.
Thank you. Deputy Superintendent Norman? Are you coming up to, did I read your body language right, that you were coming here to share something?
I apologize. It's just a question for clarity.
Wait just a second. Board members, can we focus on Board Member Norman for a minute? Thank you. Not Board Member Norman. I am so sorry.
Call me whatever you'd like. I'm
That
great. I'm
would be
great.
offensive, I'm sure. Deputy Superintendent Norman.
Patty Norman, Deputy Superintendent of Student Achievement. As we're working through, as all of you are working through the word underrepresented and looking at student groups, I wanted to call your attention down to number 5, the membership in the group. The membership in the group is reflective of what the board had decided earlier about who should be in the group, which was reflected in these categories of people to represent these certain populations. And so when we talk about underrepresented group, if we're using the current definition as in 707, or 277-707, it's a different group of people dependent on just what we were talking about. It's a mathematical equation instead of an equation that talks to specific groups of people. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention as you're discussing this item.
Thank you. AAG Quisenberry?
I was just going to say, since the motion to call the question was granted, the motion then that was pending, I think goes right to a vote without further discussion. And I don't think it did go right to a
I
vote.
apologize. There's a motion on the floor to add the words, who are at risk. Good thing I didn't sneeze, because I don't have a mask on, and I don't know if I'm socially distanced. I would have freaked everybody out. So let's go ahead and vote on the motion to add the amendment to add the words, who are at risk for underachievement in 2B policy number 5001. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The amendment passes. We have a motion on the floor. We have a motion on the floor that the board approves amendments to board policies 2001, 2002, 2003, 3001, 4001, 4002, 5001, 5006, 5007, and 5008. As amended. Board Member Earl?
There are 2 other places in that same policy where it references welfare of underrepresented students, and then it crosses out who are at risk for underachievement.
That's correct.
So I'm just wondering if we're wanting to address that as well, including, it's on, hold on, let me look down. 5001, policy number. So membership, it says 5 members with expertise or experience serving underrepresented students. We struck at risk for underachievement. It probably should be included there because that would be the focus.
Are
is
you making an
academic.
amendment?
I'm making yes, I'm making an amendment that we add the wording back in on membership to I, the at risk for underachievement. I think there's one more spot unless I'm missing it.
It's actually up on page 2.
On page 2. Okay, yeah, interest related to educational, okay, so the top of page 2, the same thing, equity for students who are at risk for underachievement. So our focus is back on academics, ours is highly focused there.
There is a motion on the floor to add the words, who are at risk for underachievement back into both places in policy that it was struck. Do we have a second? Second, Board Member Booth. Board Member Hanson.
Again? There we go, sorry. I won't speak against this because I don't think that it makes really any substantive changes to what Access Committee is going to do. Our definition of educational equity includes identifying children who are at risk, of not achieving, and that definition is baked into this policy. But I think it's fine to keep this in. Let's just move it forward and
Thank
get
you.
the
Board
vote.
Member Cannon?
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Okay.
My substitute motion would be that we send this particular policy, is it 5001, back to committee and request that staff give us updated information suggested by Superintendent Norman with what the committee makeup should be based on new information, and that the current amendments be discussed by committee and brought back to the board.
I hope someone was writing that motion language for me. Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Board Member Lear is the second. We have a substitute motion on the floor that we send Board Policy 5001 back to committee with recommendation from staff on what access committee makeup should be.
And including the proposed amendments regarding students who are at risk for underachievement.
Including the proposed amendments regarding students who are at risk for underachievement. Seeing no further discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Those in favor, raise your hands, please. That would be Board Member Booth, Hart, Lear, Cannon, Norton,
Moss.
and Klein. Did someone count that for us? And Moss. Moss is succumbing to peer pressure, so. Okay, the motion fails. We have a motion on the floor to put the words "who are at risk of academic," who are at risk for underachievement, in each place where it was struck in policy 5001. Seeing no more discussion, those in favor say, Board Member, Chair.
Oh, no, it's just a delay.
Those in favor say aye. Those in favor say aye. Say aye and aye. All right, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Back to you, Vice Chair Moss.
So I think the motion is still on the table, correct? Or to approve.
Oh, for pity's sake. We have a motion on the floor that the board approves amendments to board policies 2001, 2003, 200. Let me start over. There's a motion on the floor that the board approves amendments to board policies 2001, 2002, 2003, 3001, 4001, 4002, 5001, 5006, 5007, 5008, as amended. Board Member Earl. Dr. Norman.
I just wanted to point out that on 5001, access is spelled wrong throughout the entire document.
Can someone just fix that?
It's
I'm going
fixed
to
in the
take a chair prerogative and
It
just
was fixed in
say,
the reformatted version.
it's in the reformatted version. Thank you. Can you? Board Member Earl.
Yeah, I had a question then. And so if I understand right, there's different formatting. And when you say different formatting, I'm not sure what that means.
It means like, in one policy, it's formatted Roman numeral 1, big B, little 2, and in the next policy, it's formatted regular numeral 1, big B, little Roman numeral.
Thank you. I was making sure it wasn't like a.
It's not substantive.
That's,
Yes.
yeah. So, okay.
Seeing no further discussion, those in favor say aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Vice Chair Moss.
All right, thank you.
Now we're going to get into busy stuff.
Item 12.7, discretionary funds recommendation. So we had a pretty extensive discussion led by Deputy Superintendent Jones on the use of our discretionary funds. And the committee moves that, this is a long one, the board approve the following transfers and/or continued and/or new uses of the board's discretionary funds as follows. One, $200,000 of unrestricted state funds remain set aside for contingency purposes. And two, $126,555.42 of unrestricted state funds remain for the SEATS programmer project. And three, $29,979.74 of unrestricted state funds previously set aside for the House Bill 373 implementation requirements be returned to the state funds portion of the discretionary funds. And four, the remaining $313.45 of federal minimum release FML funds for the school fees project requirement be returned to the FML portion of the discretionary funds. And five, the school trust lands website rebuild project be recorded as completed and removed from the discretionary funds tracker as the FML funds set aside for that project were 100% expended. And six, the remaining $50.00 for FML for the teacher recruitment campaign is returned to the FML portion of the discretionary funds, and that project recorded as completed. And seven, the remaining $108,865.87 of FML funds for the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion position is returned to the FML funds portion of the discretionary funds. And eight, the $54,161.55 of FML funds for the continued research and development related to the funding study amount remain for that purpose. And nine, $73,020.26 of land exchange funds previously set aside for the House Bill 373 implementation requirement be returned to the land exchange portion of the discretionary funds. And 10, $250,000 of unrestricted state funds is identified and set aside for ongoing litigation. And finally, 11, $200,000 of unrestricted state funds is identified for and transferred to the Superintendent of Public Instruction for use at her discretion.
Seeing no discussion, please vote for the motion as stated.
Nope.
Oh, there were no lights on. Board Member Earl.
I wasn't sure when
If
he
I
was
have
done.
to reread this whole thing again, no, go ahead.
I just had wondered if Scott Jones, if he has that information for us on the costs associated with the rural schools.
Please.
Deputy Superintendent of Operations, Scott Jones. Yes, we have the information. I did email it to you specifically, Board Member Earl, so it's in your inbox. We can follow up with an email to the remainder of the board after we flow through this. So Deborah's going to connect. Can she, well, yeah, can we take this down? Is that okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Chair, if I may, while she's bringing this up, we did contact Superintendent Kate Douglas and Jason Strait from one of the RESAs to get more detail on the URSA conference for next year. So the $50,000 is an estimate. $50,000 is an estimate. You're going to see pretty soon that we've been spending about half that much, sometimes less than that, on that conference or helping with that conference. Their explanation, and Dr. Norman can add to this too, because she was actually in the meeting where they were kind of formulating this estimate. So basically what it amounts to is that they're seeing I did mention this earlier, a sharp increase in participation in the conferences. There's the, normal charges for the speakers. But in addition to that, they're looking at hiring like conference organizers because it has become such a popular conference. That in itself could, add additional thousands of dollars to it. And to me, it's the benefit of that does outweigh the cost. I've attended those conferences myself. They're very valuable conferences, especially, of course, to our rural schools and districts and teachers and et cetera. So that's basically where the formulation is coming from for the estimate of the $50,000. If for some reason it's much less than that, again, I don't anticipate it'll be more than that. That money would be returned to you, much like along the lines of the process that Vice Chair Moss of the Finance Committee just explained. We'd make a motion to return it back into its source, at a later date. The conferences do take place in the summer, so we wouldn't know until next year around this time how much of that $50,000 actually ended up getting spent. But, it's an appropriated, it's an allocated amount by you, at your direction. So the details now are up on the screen of, past amounts that were provided to the superintendent. Then what we did was we focused exclusively on dollar amounts for, and I mentioned it's about half of what was being requested for the $50,000. In addition to that, and we can get drilled even deeper down, but we also wanted to demonstrate other programs or projects, if you will, that the superintendent has used the discretionary funds on in the past, and that's at the bottom part. Subject to questions, this is the report that we have for you.
Do you have a follow-up?
I do have a follow-up. So if I'm understanding correctly, it's usually about, if we did nest about 20,000 a year, that's currently running. So we're technically asking for
Doubling.
about, 3.5 times,
Yeah.
right? The amount. And they expect it to be that, oh, no? Because it would be 50 plus the 20,000 that they're currently.
No, it's 50 total. 50 total. So.
Okay, so we're not building the previous
No, we're not doing
cost into
20
it.
plus 50. We're doing 50 total. So that's
Okay.
where I come up with a little more than double.
Okay, so
Right.
then the superintendent's budget would be 150, not,
Oh,
right?
I
Because
see.
you're taking the 20,000 out of that, but that's normally what the budget would be. So it's
Right.
increasing that one by 20%, not by 20%, by 20,000, and then you've got the additional 50.
Right. Chair, if I may,
Please.
I misunderstood your question.
Please.
So
Yeah.
as it relates to the superintendent's amount, we're asking for an increase of $150,000 to $200,000, right? So the $50,000 would go to URSA, right? So yes, normally we pay URSA out of the $150,000 that you've allocated in the past. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
So just, let me make sure I'm understanding. Thank you for your patience. So it would be an increase of the superintendent's budget by about 20,000, and then the 50,000 would be an additional increase for the rural schools. Because traditionally, that would have come out of her budget.
Yes.
So that budget would have traditionally, for other things, would have been at 130,000
No. Okay.
plus the rural schools. It would have been 130 plus the rural schools, which would have been about 150.
Okay, so,
Right.
Chair, if I may, let me
Please.
see if I can break it down. So if you look at the history of how much we've allocated, how much you have allocated to the superintendent, it's roughly $150,000 per year. Not every year, because she doesn't spend $150,000 a year, so she has carry forward, and we always use carry forward first. So what we're asking for is normally what we ask for, which is the $150,000, increased by $50,000 to $200,000. $50,000 would go to that specific URSA conference out of the $200,000. So, and then she would still have $150,000. Yeah, I think we're tracking. Yeah.
That's what I understood.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Seeing no further discussion, please vote for the motion as stated. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Item number 12.8 is RTC Special Education Program Monitoring Fees. So we have residential treatment centers which take care of students from out of state. A couple states, California and Illinois, require us to certify and monitor. Half-time FTE was allocated to that, but we charge the RTCs a certain fee to cover the cost of that certification, which then gets them payment from the out-of-state centers. So this simply provides a fee schedule based on our staff's review of distance and time, et cetera. So the motion is that the board approve the proposed residential treatment center certification fee schedule.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor that the board approve the proposed residential treatment center certification fee schedule. Seeing no discussion, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
And last item, 9. That the board continue and approve R277-484 Data Standards Draft 2 on second and final reading.
There is a motion on the floor that the board continue and approve R277-484 Data Standards Draft 2 on second and final reading. Seeing no further discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes unanimously.